Hello everybody, welcome to Matrix Live episode 2.
Coming to you from the open market offices where we're squatting again this week, probably for the last time. And yeah, welcome. First of all, one thing, this week we decided that we're going to release these episodes a week after they've aired to our Patreon donors, to the wider public, so that everybody can see what's going on, because information longs to be free and we want everybody to experience the amazingness of these slightly embarrassing video blogs.
Yeah.
The
world needs more of this.
Oh yeah, clearly the world needs a lot more of this. Hopefully this is a good thing, and please tell us if you're finding these useful and if there's anything we can do to make them better or worse or whatever floats your boat. Should we start talking about funding?
Sure. Where are we at this week? Well, I guess the big news of the week is that we got a new sponsor with privateinternetaccess.com, which is amazing, but that we're still far away to get sustainable funding from for the whole team so far.
I'd like to reach out to the privateinternetaccess.com guys and say thank you very much for getting in touch and making a very sizable donation, which will help a lot in going and keeping us going.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do still have a long way to go there. So particularly, I guess we're looking for folks who are working at companies who are actually building on top of Matrix, who might want to get prioritized development done or might want specific VIP support and that sort of thing. Please get in touch with us. But also, if you're just a company who thinks that Matrix is cool and the world needs Matrix, like privateinternetaccess.com, obviously get in touch too. In terms of Patreon status so far, I don't know we've got the most up-to-date figures. I think it's about $1,800 a month on Patreon and about $250 a month on LibrePay. However, we have set up the LibrePay account properly at last. Thank you, Amandine, for going and allowing us to receive the donations there.
We did. Although we still don't know who the donors are, given they're anonymous. So I guess if folks want their rewards, going through Patreon is probably a best bet, because at least we can reach out to you.
True, but we also need to find a way to go and hook up the LibrePay supporters with their rewards. So basically, LibrePay people, we haven't forgotten you. We'll be putting out a call for you to somehow prove that you've donated via LibrePay so that we can give you access to this amazing blog and all the other goodies which you get as a supporter. So bear with us.
Moving forward, so something very exciting this week, the end-to-end encryption user experience. So getting the user flow right for actually setting up encrypted conversation is quite a huge thing, because it can scare away people who are mostly used to WhatsApp. And at the same time, you still want something which can be super secure, as most of our current users are looking for. So we're trying to get the balance right, and we think that we're getting there. Basically, just quickly, high-level ideas is that you will get 4 status of the different devices in a room. It's either blocked or new or trusted, because you just blindly trust them, and otherwise verified, because you've gone through the steps to actually verify them. We are also going to provide a way to actually opt out from getting your messages and your conversations blocked by the fact that new devices got into the room, because if you're just a user who wants your conversation encrypted but don't want to push the want to actually push the experience to actually verify every single devices which get into a room, that would be useful. And we're setting up as well all the authorization of sharing the history every time you bring a new device in a room. So yes, basically trying to get the balance right on the end-to-end encryption user experience.
So the idea is that the key share requests are going to end up in the top left next to your invites, so you can see who has been asking for access to your encrypted history, which typically will be you on a new device. We've got the four-way toggle that you just described on the end-to-end dashboard. So each device, you can either say, I want to block this device entirely, or I want to go over to the other extreme, and I want to verify it and use it all the time. And yeah, basically reducing the amount of spam a lot in terms of the notifications. Oh, and a really cool thing will be the status bar. So if you try typing in a room with untrusted devices, it will just say in the status bar in red, we've quarantined your messages, basically, because we don't know whether to trust the people in the room, which will be much better than the big, ugly dialog box, which we have currently that pops up all the time in end-to-end encrypted rooms. That, combined with cross-signing devices and generally improving the verification UX, will basically finish off the whole end-to-end UX, we hope.
Yes, and I think something really interesting is that if we make it easy enough for people who are used to WhatsApp today, the day that they actually become more aware about the privacy problems, etc., it will be very easy for them to actually ramp up and go into full hog of verifying every single new devices that gets into a room. So yeah, fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically opting in to decent security when you need it, but not forcing everybody at gunpoint like we are currently. On the development side on end-to-end, so Rich VDH has been off on an epic to go and switch the storage layer over through to IndexedDB. We spoke about it last week. It's still going on this week. It basically has ended up changing almost the entire API of the JS SDK from being synchronous to async, which is about as massive a API refactor as we can imagine. I think it's pretty much done at this point, but we're still going through making sure the tests actually work and that we haven't introduced any interesting thinkers. I think the performance implications could be pretty good because all sorts of things which blocked before are now aggressively asynchronous. So it'll be interesting to see if that manifests itself on Riot Web and being a bit more snappy. So yeah, more on that as we get it. So another thing that we've spent a lot of this week working on in the core team has been the interesting problem of state resets. Now, I'm sure that many people have noticed in some of the busier rooms like Matrix HQ or Matrix Dev, there are scenarios when sometimes people are mysteriously rejoined to the room or find themselves no longer in the room according to the view of some of the people. Now, this is obviously a big deal because it's the fundamental fabric of Matrix failing. And we've seen it get worse and worse over the last couple of months, probably since we turned on IRC membership synchronization with Freenode, and we were seeing lots more state changes in the room as people join and leave it all the time. Now, we've been digging into this a lot, and it basically ends up due to a thinko in the way in which we merge conflicted state when there is a split in the graph. So one server ends up with its own copy of the state, and another server has its own copy, and they diverge. And how do we resolve this back together when the other server is back in contact? And particularly if old servers go offline for a few months and then get upgraded and fixed and come back again, they can pull in some really old state. And specifically for this instance of people leaving rooms, there is a flaw where you can end up with the wrong conclusion on whether the person was in the room or not. So it's an interesting problem to fix because it's baked into the federation replication rules of every server out there today. And so fixing it basically means changing the fundamental federation protocol of Matrix. Now, embarrassingly, when we created Matrix back in, I guess, August 2014, from a federation perspective, we had, well, first of all, it was a crazy rush. We were trying to get it out the door as quickly as possible in order to show it off at TechCrunch Disrupt in 2014, back in San Fran. And it's a... basically, we needed to put a escape hatch into the Federation protocol to allow us to bootstrap and upgrade it. And we thought about it, and we planned it, and it never got implemented then. Now we're at the point of needing to make a fairly fundamental change, and we basically need to change the rules of how the rooms are replicated. And there are two ways we can do it. We can go and start off basically creating a new room with entirely fresh state and somehow bootstrap from the old room to the new room, which could be quite disruptive. It probably means that people would have to manually rejoin the new room, and you end up with this sort of a fairly big bump in the road. Or possibly we might find a way to have a version number on the room protocol so we can keep the same room, but at some point the admin flips a button to say, hey, we're upgrading this room to be using the new version, and anybody who's on a Synapse older than this number isn't going to be able to participate anymore. Basically, this is the scale of work that we need to do on it, and it's going to be a reasonable effort to do it, but we basically started it yesterday, and lots of discussions as to which of the various compromises we need to do to make it happen. I think it's fair to say that what we'll do in the end is to ship in the next Synapse ability to sort of prepare for the upgrade to the protocol to fix the state resets, and then leave it out there for a couple of months probably until as many people as possible have upgraded to it, and then there will be then we'll actually start turning it on, and people who are still stuck on old synapses will discover themselves no longer able to participate properly in the rooms which have been upgraded. So it's going to be a bit of an irritating jump, but we're going to make it as seamless and painless as we possibly can. And in some ways it's a little bit like a hard fork of the protocol, in that we're changing the fundamental rules to fix a bug, a bit like the Ethereum one after the DAO heist last year. But the good news is that it's not trying to patch up a bug which has cost anybody $150 million or whatever the Ethereum heist cost, and it should be less controversial. And we're not expecting to see a Matrix classic come off the back of this, where everybody keeps running the buggy version, because there would be no reason to do so, other than if you really, really like state resets. Anyway, sorry for the long waffle, but that's where things are at on state resets. Tell us about mentions, Amandine.
Yes, mentions eventually made it to the developed version of Riot, where you can start playing with them. We're still fiddling a bit with the design of them today, because there are some small faces displayed all over the place, so maybe we have to check whether it works or not. But at least it's here, and much better and much easier to use.
Yeah, we could really do with feedback on this actually from everybody out there, because basically the way it works on RTE is that you type somebody's name, tab complete it, and it now pops into a pill, as we call them, to show it as a proper first-class mention entity. And at the moment on the timeline, it's shown as the little avatar in the name, and as a result you have little avatars everywhere, all over the page. And it's a little bit surprising if you're an IRC geek like me, who is used to seeing text, and possibly emoji if you're really lucky, but to suddenly see people's faces staring back at you is pretty weird. So feedback on whether we should hide or show the little faces would be great, and yeah, the aesthetics of how it's looking would be great. Check it out on riot.im/develop. We must be running late. Let's go and talk about all the other stuff quickly. MELS, mobile.
MELS mobile. So yes, that's the latest news on the. It's not live actually. It's just on the
developed
developed versions of iOS.
I think it only landed like yesterday or the day before on iOS.
Well, you get all the status collapsed and make it much easier to read than the full list of joins and leave in the room. So
honestly, this has changed my life on iOS. I upgraded to it a couple of hours ago, and folks on test flight can probably get it early next week, or if you're crazy you can go and build your own Riot to look at it. But if we go and look like that, you can see at the bottom that we've got 2 membership changes. And so it's collapsed a join in a part, or 2 joins into one event, which is really cool.
Really cool. And what about the next big thing on iOS?
We just saw that the PR for Dark Theme on iOS. Yes, that's right, everybody. We have, at long last, our single most requested mobile feature, Dark Theme, landing on both iOS and Android. I think the Android one is community PR. I've forgotten who's contributed it. I'm sorry if you're out there. But on iOS, we've done it in-house, and the PR is being reviewed as we speak, although it might get blocked on people going on summer holiday. Groups are progressing on Riot Dev. So Dave tells me that we can now edit groups. So if you're crazy enough to be running an experimental home server on precisely the right branch that is supporting groups, from Riot Dev you can now both view and edit membership of groups. But basically it's all completely up in the air. I haven't even tried using it myself yet, but I'm sure it's going to be amazing. On Synapse, Erik has landed his optimization on Monday that he didn't put live yet last Friday, which has been a huge improvement.
So the cool thing with the Synapse optimizations is that it gives us something to talk about every week.
Yes.
Every week, new optimizations. I think it's just because Erik likes when we mention his name.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the only reason that his optimizing matrix.org gets nothing at all to stop it grinding to a halt. But this one was a real win in that it's reduced the send time average from hovering around half a second, which is awful, honestly, to somewhere between 50 mils and 200 mils. So somewhere between an order of magnitude and factor of 3 speed up, which should be pretty noticeable to everybody.
Yep.
Although, of course, the traffic has been increasing at the same time, so even whilst we optimize in one direction, the load is going up in the other direction. But also the CPU usage has gone down a bunch as well. Ironically, the hardware is behaving weirdly, so that's camouflaging a lot of the benefits. And if anybody knows about soft IRQs and VertNet drivers, then please tell me, because our soft IRQ count on the box has dropped from something like 20,000 hertz to about 1,000 hertz, and we've no idea why, and it's causing some kind of performance issues. But either way, the optimizations are camouflaging that and making it better. And finally, Dendrite work is continuing, mainly being done by Brendan this week, and he's gone and finished the Profile API modulo review, and is now working on the account data API, which is what does... What does account data do again? It's used for storing your push settings, I think. I wrote this, actually, so I should remember it. At least I wrote it on the client side. Oh yeah, we implemented it for changing room color. That critical feature that turns out to be useful for things more than changing room color on Riot, and is basically freeform user data. So anybody nutty enough to be using Dendrite will discover that they can finally set room color on their Riot rooms, which is clearly the feature they've been missing so far. So that's, I think, about everything that's been happening this week over in Matrix Land. Anything else?
I think so.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else on the funding side of things. If we're completely incoherent for a change, it's because it's the end of the week and it's been a particularly long week again as we try to sort out our funding for the sustainability of the team going forwards. There seemed to be some confusion about the blog post I made earlier in the week, where folks on Reddit were saying, "Oh, isn't it great that Matrix has solved all of its funding problems?" I'm not sure what I said, but we haven't quite solved it.
I think we need to update the way we present the Patreon goals.
Yeah.
Because that might be what is confusing people.
Yeah, the people are seeing the first Patreon goal, which is to pay for half a dev out of 10, and they say, "Oh, look, that's like 70% of the way through, so it must be good." We need more help. I mean, thank you everybody who's listening to this, who's supporting us on Patreon or LibrePay or Bitcoin. Oh yeah, we should say that the Matrix.org Foundation setup is progressing well. We've been talking to lawyers all afternoon about getting the specifics of its setup. It looks as if it should land next week.
Yeah, hopefully next week. Eventually, after 3 years talking about it.
Yep, but it is actually happening, and we can then go and receive all the donated cash into there.
I think it might be useful to remind everybody that on Monday morning, 10:30 a.m. in London time, there is the Matrix team internal sync. And for same people who actually gets to watch this show, then you can go and participate, right?
No, it's the
mixing up all the packages.
Yeah, you're mixing up the packages. So on Patreon, I think if you're donating more than $5 a month, you get to see this. And if you're donating more than $10 a month, then you can tune in to watch the stream of our sync, which is amazing and disorganized, but at least you're seeing the raw, unfiltered chaos of the team. And then if you're at 50... Oh, I've got to mix this up again. It's like...
Let me
go and look on the Patreon thing. You're probably on Patreon right now watching this. Look on the right-hand side and it will tell you the different tiers. I think, it's the $50 Elliptic supporters who can actually tune in to participate and ask questions and generally be honorary members of the team on the video conference. And is it 25 or is it 10 who get to tune in to the stream?
Tune in is 50, and then just watch it.
Oh, no, we don't have a 25.
10.
Yeah, it's 10. Okay, so I got it right.
This one,
there we go.
Podcast is 5.
Cool. We know what we're doing. It's fine.
No problem.
Cool. anything else from you?
No, I think that's it.
Okay,
So
thank you everybody for supporting us,
Yeah.
and people in the future who get to see this in the general public a week from now, this is what was happening a week ago. And if you want to hear what's happening immediately, then yeah, go and support us on Patreon or LibrePay for $10 a month or more. Thank you again, everybody. Thanks for flying,
Bye-bye.
Matrix. Bye.